Zidane Danny, Electro Ninja here, and welcome back to Electro Ninja's Lab. It's time for another Nerd Chat, and I am here with my fellow host,
I'm Jack.
and we are going to be talking about books that define generations, and kind of what that means. Obviously, we read a lot of books, um, both older and newer books, all over the place. So yeah, um, and I think that we're kind of in the era of some new books that will define upcoming generations. Um, like, if you think since Percy Jackson have their up until now, can you really think of too many books that you feel would define generations? Jack,
Sorry, what?
can you think of any books since Percy Jackson, um, and the other one that we're not going to be talking about, um, that have really defined generations since they were happening? Like
Um,
like in up until like Skandar and Impossible Creatures and um the Dragon Ship series.
I really can't.
Yeah. Like I can't really either. And sometimes that just I think a lot of times there's just like these gaps between books that really define generations. And a lot of these books that do happen, I think that they obviously they are major influencing factors and they're read for generations. I think like one of the obviously there are certain books that are considered like classics and stuff like that, and those are often read years and years afterwards. Um, but like before Percy Jackson and uh, the one that we're not going to be talking about, and Aragon, I would say that before that was probably, I don't want to say there wasn't anything between it and Lord of the Rings and Chronicles of Narnia, but those two were like some really major heavy hitters at the time, and obviously there were others as well, but like between that and like the Percy Jackson series, there obviously there were some, but those were like some of the really big ones. So, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. Um, in case it's not completely obvious, so we're going to be talking about like obviously Lord of the Rings, uh, uh, and Chronicles of Narnia, Percy Jackson, uh, the one that we're not going to be talking about. We'll keep referring to it as that, because we don't want to. Yeah. Um, as
The
well.
book series Who Shall Not Be Named.
Yeah, the book series that shall not be named. That is a great way of putting it. Um, and Aragon, which I think it's interesting that of those two, of those three, um, only really one of them got good movies, and it was the series that shall not be named. Um, Personally, I think the Aragon movie was good, but I can also understand that if you have read the book series, it's really not. If you've
I
if
never even watched the Aragon movies because I was like, these aren't going to be good.
Well, there's only one.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah. So I personally love the Aragon. I love Aragon the movie. I still think that it holds up pretty well. However, it is vastly different from the original book. Same thing goes for Percy Jackson. It is just I would say the first one is decent if you haven't read the book of the Percy Jackson movies. The second one is just trash. It is just complete and utter trash. Um, and yeah, like I don't think any like even and I completely understand why Rick Riordan does not like either of them because they really are just shit in the, yeah, they're just bad. They're really not good. Only really the series that shall not be
They
named.
really are.
Only of those three, only the series that shall not be named really had a good movie series. I think that Aragon is going to be getting a TV show soon, because I do follow him, and he is since he is returning to writing, stuff for the Aragon series. There is going to be some shows, I think, is what it's going to be. And Percy Jackson has recently gotten its show, and along with, I think that Kane Chronicles is also going to be getting a series soon. But yeah, I think that it's going to be really interesting to see how that turns out, how the Percy Jackson series turns out, because obviously the first season, loved it. Did you watch it or did you not? I don't remember if you did.
I did.
Okay, and what did you think of it?
I thought it was good.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that it turns out really well. And Riordan is significantly involved with the actual creation of that show. But I think the point of it that I'm trying to make with that is that these 3 books, even if you didn't read them, which I didn't read I didn't read Percy Jackson until college, and the series that shall not be named, which, yeah, I didn't read until high school, and yet I still knew quite a bit about them. Like, I would say,
Same.
so yeah, obviously those series are like that. I think that we could probably include other books like Animorphs, even though you read them, right? But I haven't.
I did. They were fantastic.
Yeah. So Animorphs were good. They would probably be also in there. You can even if you don't necessarily know. I don't really know anything about Animorphs except for that they exist, and that a lot of people love them. And then what was the other series? Oh, a series of unfortunate events. Although I think that was before either of any of those. Like when was that? That was a while ago, wasn't it? Was that? I think that was either 80s or 90s.
A series of unfortunate events.
Or no, like I thought it was like late 90s. So I don't know.
Early 2000s. Mid
Really?
2000s.
Okay, I thought it started earlier. I don't know why, but yeah. Okay, so that was around the same time then. So yeah, Series of Unfortunate Events was also around that time. I thought it was the oldest of all of those, but I guess I'm wrong. I don't actually know.
No.
I don't know which one of those is the oldest of them, of that in that era.
The series that shall not be named is the oldest.
Okay. Did that start in the 90s? Late
did.
90s? Okay. Okay.
Yes.
That makes sense. So that's the oldest of them. So that makes sense. It's and again, it's one of the few that actually got like a good movie. But even still, like all the others, you know what we're talking. Even if you haven't read them, you know the story that is in there, because it's just so ingrained in the public consciousness. And then obviously like Lord of the Rings and Chronicles of Narnia were what I would say were before that. Obviously, Chronicles of Narnia isn't necessarily something that every single person has read or knows about, because it was something that really it was mostly the Christian groups that were reading it, because it's not subtle at all. It's not subtle in its metaphors at all.
Not remotely.
Yeah. So yeah, that's. So it does have a lot of people who are not Christians didn't read it, but if you're in the Christian circles, then you've probably at least know about it, especially because those books really caused a lot of conversation when it came to with a lot of theology, especially the Last Battle. We're not going to get into all of that because it's a long, complicated conversation. But yeah, and then obviously Lord of the Rings has had several movies, has continued to sell amazingly, Um,
The movies
even
were pretty darn good, I must say.
the movies were pretty good. I think like Hobbit probably suffered the most of those, mostly because they dragged it out. Um, I've actually read some of the Untold Stories now, and while
The
some of
Lost Tales.
yeah, Lost Tales and such like that, and some of what was in the Hobbit was actually in those, and properly explained in those. So in the Hobbit movies, so it actually does make a little bit more sense. I think that after reading that, I kind of found a more appreciation of the Hobbit movies. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that it still struggles. It still has issues, but it's not as much of like what the hell is happening here. It's more like you added more than you probably should have for sure, and you dragged out the shortest book into 3 movies. That feels a bit insane. It's
Yeah.
kind of like that was the Prince Caspian, the Disney version to me.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, all of the pretty much the only one of the Chronicles of Narnia movies from at least the recent ones that was actually good was the first one, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. That is, it's actually a debate between a lot of people which version of Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is the better movie. And I personally am on board on team the newer one. Um, but I also watched that first, so that's part of it. The BBC version is also really good, as is the cartoon that they made. Um, if you haven't watched the BBC versions of all of those movies, I absolutely recommend it because they are I would say they're the definitive versions of those.
Agreed.
So yeah, um, obviously not everyone has watched those. But they are extremely accurate to the movies, and they only cut like 3 of the books, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, so they didn't have Magician's Nephew, they didn't have Horse and His Boy, and they didn't have obviously the Last Battle. But the Last Battle is also like really freaking intense. It's a lot, and I think that of all the books, that one was probably the one that was not really meant for children, comparatively. Um, and the thing is, like a lot of these books, you can read as children. I think that Lord of the Rings kind of has some is more for the older children, so like young adults and stuff. And um, with Hobbit obviously being a children's book, and then when it comes to Chronicles of Narnia, most of them are actually children's books, with only really The Last Battle not being one, I would say. Maybe a little bit of Silverchair. Silverchair is also kind of dark. What would you say?
That's true.
Yeah. Like, in terms of the movies, the recent movies, I would say, if you're a kid, you probably shouldn't be watching, freaking Voyage of the Dawn Treader. Like teenagers, fine, whatever. But like young kids probably shouldn't be watching the recent Voyage of the Dawn Treader, because they really went ridiculous with that, and they changed so much.
Yeah.
They wanted a Pirates of the Caribbean, and that's not what Voyage of the Dawn Treader is. So yeah, like in the original story, they took that island without drawing a single sword. That is insane. That Prince Caspian, who had been sold as a slave, managed to retake that island without actually being without ever drawing a sword. That is incredible. So yeah,
Yeah.
that is actually amazing. Um, and I think that that's a lot. That especially is like some really good messaging for people. Is like, you don't have to use violence to solve problems. I think that is really what that whole point is for that moment. And yet they were like, no, let's do Pirates of the Caribbean. Um, I don't know.
Really though.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a lot. It really is. But I don't know. But then when it comes to the newer series, obviously the series that shall not be named, the Percy Jackson series, as well as all of its spin-offs, um, I I don't know. It's Percy Jackson is incredible, and it's kind of surprising that it's really has inspired a lot of people to get into the mythology, to learn about the cultures of the world. Like even I like learning about different cultures. I have for a long time, even before I read Percy Jackson, and Percy Jackson just reawakened a lot of that, and I started looking way more into other cultures after I read Percy Jackson, and it's kind of telling that a series like Percy Jackson is able to help people want to learn more about other cultures and other peoples. Um, like even though it started off pretty small, they didn't really go. He didn't really go into a lot of like TQ themes. He didn't really go into a lot of the issues that have been rising more and more in recent years in the original Percy Jackson series. Um, he obviously had Nico and other gay characters in Percy Jackson, but he really didn't start going into all of that until the next series. And I don't know. Percy has kind of grown with his audience, and
Yeah.
I would say like the modern stuff, like the Sun and the Star, and the restarting of the Percy Jackson series from 6 onward, um, that that has a much older audience in mind compared to like the first series of Percy Jackson or even Heroes of Olympus. Those were more aimed at younger audiences, um, like prepubescent. Meanwhile, a lot of the more recent books are um, college students and high school students and stuff like that, as well as the people who were around when the books first came out. And you haven't read a lot of them yet, I know, but they're. I think that it is really telling for how much they are. Um, and I don't know. It's it's interesting looking back at a lot of these things and what these stories can tell us even now. Um, the Percy Jackson series, I think that was a major influence on how even the kids who are not part of the LGBT community are much more welcoming of them because they've seen how things are because of the Percy Jackson series.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And yeah, I think that there's a lot more with that we could probably go over for that. Um, and much more welcoming of different people of different races, and there's not really a factor with that. Like, um, they don't. A lot of kids nowadays, they don't even see race anymore. They're just like, oh, you're a kid I want to hang out with, and that's it. Doesn't matter what color your skin is, or who you are, who your parents are. Um, and it's gotten more and more, and I think that the next step for that has been the recent series like Skandar. Like, pretty much every character in Skandar is pretty much the only character I can think of that directly that is white is Skandar and Bobby, I think. Or is Bobby even? I don't remember if she is. I know Skandar is, but like everyone else
Yeah.
is, like obviously, um, Flo's African, British, or whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to say.
He's black.
Yeah, she's black. Let's just be simple. Mitchell has olive skin is what I think the way that they describe him. Um,
Yeah.
and then I don't remember. I don't remember for Bobby, but and there are characters who are in a wheelchair. Not a big deal. There's a character who is trans or non-binary, I should say, and that's not a big deal. It's just like they refer to them as they all the time, and it's it's interesting to see that. It really is, and I would say the same thing. And then frickin' Impossible Creatures. I don't want to get too much into spoiler territory, because there is with that because you haven't read it. Um,
I'm halfway through.
you're halfway through, but the Immortal is a very important character throughout that series, and even before they're explained who they are, but because they can be pretty much a whole bunch of just different people. Every time that that they die, they become they reincarnate basically as a new person, and yeah, they have lived so many lives, and that gets explained more and more, and it's it's hard to properly explain that, but yeah, it's it's also a very important story because there is conflict between the different species on the in the archipelago, um, but the Immortal and Christopher and Mal and all of the other people are heavily involved with trying to make sure that peace remains between all of these species and to find ways that all of the different species can live together in harmony. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if at some point in the future, um, the archipelago becomes open to the rest of the world. And or maybe they like try to figure out a way to to show the rest of the world stuff from the archipelago and fix things with it. I don't think that's gonna happen, but it would be interesting if they did decide to do that. Because I don't think that they're going to. Yeah, the archipelago is complicated. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's a fun series. And then when it comes to the Dragon Ship series, which I would also even though you have not read it, so I'm not going to go too much in depth with it, but it's basically about someone who is, people who are outcasts coming together and becoming a found family and working together to save their home. It's incredible. Um, and it also deals a lot with the dark parts of humanity. It uh, um, basically there are dragon ships and how exactly you the different people who work with the dragon ships function, how they are willing to actually work with people. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's 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 a really good series, and I wish that I could say more about it. Um,
It's in
but
my Amazon cart.
good, yeah, I love The Last Dragon on Mars. It's such a good book. Um, and the next book is coming out next month, so yay! I'm actually really excited for that. That's gonna be a lot of fun. But yeah, um, but you had some other books that you wanted to talk about that you feel have kind of been defining factors.
Yeah. There was a book series when I was 10 called Airborne, Skybreaker, and Star Climber. And it was really cool. It was about this world where there were no airplanes, there were airships, like blimps. And this kid was working on them on one, and it talked about air pirates, and it talked about all these crazy animals that were like flying cats.
Huh.
and just all this kind of crazy stuff. It's so good. And I just found it at Half Price Books one day, and I fell in love with it. It was so good.
Yeah. And I think it's worth noting that when we say define generations, I think it's worth being aware that what we're mainly talking about is more like, sure, yes, books that are major influences on cultures, but there are certain books out there that just define one or two people or a group of people. Um, like there were some books that you read that you've obviously like. There's a lot of books, but that you've read over time that have defined you as a person, and there's books that have defined me over as a person, even if they're not necessarily
Books by Roland Smith defined my childhood.
fair. So yeah, and then like for me, the Spiderwick Chronicles by Holly Black and I'm forgetting what his name is, but they were instrumental. I loved them. They were just a great series. I wish that there was actually a so they made a series recently that goes that's retelling that. It's only on the Roku channel though, for one. And when I've looked at trailers, it concerns me like what they went for with that. Like they were heavily involved with the movie and its eventual video game, and I'm wondering if they were even slightly involved with what happened in the recent show that they did. I don't know. I don't know. Holly Black has gone on to different pastures. So I think isn't it like didn't she write? She wrote like Thorn Prince or whatever, right? I think that's what it's called.
I don't remember.
But yeah, she wrote something that's like more adult in recent years. So, but yeah, that's like I don't know. Spiderwick Chronicles was the better, at least in my opinion. I didn't read her other things, so I don't know for sure. But yeah, but I don't know. Books like I don't know. Can you like what would be another book that has defined generations that you can think of?
John Green's The Fault in Our Stars.
Yeah. Well, I feel like that for
Most John Green.
Like I don't really think too much about those, but I do know what you mean with those. So, I don't know. Oh, what about Artemis Fowl? Would you say that would have?
Definitely.
Yeah, like I've only read the first book, so I don't know too much about it.
My dad read them all and he loved them, and I was like, "That's bizarre."
They don't really feel like his books.
No.
Oh, that's weird. That's funny. But yeah. I would also say the Ember series, City of Ember, which I know you didn't read, correct?
Correct.
Did you watch the movie at least?
No.
Okay. That is actually one. So that was a flop. The movie was a flop. Very few people went to go see it, and personally, I think that it was that it was a really well done movie. I would say that it was accurate to what it was to the story, and even though there were definitely some changes that they made, I feel like that was more accurate to its source material than the series that shall not be named.
That's fair.
So, and they changed like a character's gender for or no, they didn't. Sorry, they didn't change the character's gender. They changed who found something later on in the book, as well as like a whole bunch of just random things. But as a whole, I would say it's probably more accurate than the series that shall not be named, which is insane to
That
think
makes
about.
sense.
That I don't know. It's yeah, but sadly they never made like any more books or any more movies besides that. Um, I also think it's interesting that a lot of these books that define generations, um, many of them do stop at some point. Like obviously, Lord of the Rings stopped. Uh, um, Although I think that there probably would have been a lot more books if he hadn't passed away.
True.
Um, like various different stuff because we obviously see that in Silmarillion and the Unfinished Tales. Um, that he had a lot of plans. He had a lot of plans that he wanted to do with those, and like the of the series that have not ended. Let's so I would say so Percy Jackson hasn't ended. That's the um what else has and that's it. I think that Percy Jackson is the only one that came to an end. Um, I or didn't come to an end, I should say. Um, Aragon did come to an end, but it's coming back. So I'm not going to classify that as continued on for years and years to come. Um, well, I do. I think that it was very good that he took a break from the Aragon series, though, because there were certain things that I really didn't like about the about Inheritance, but Murtagh made so much up for what happened in Inheritance. I loved Murtagh; it was so good.
I still haven't read it.
You need to at some point. It was, yeah, um, yeah. He started off with the Fork, the Witch, and the Worm, and then he came out with Murtagh, which continues the story from the Fork, and tells a story that is just solely focused on Murtagh and deals a lot with everything that happened in the previous books, specifically with him and how he's gotten better from it. It's incredible. Um and he's planning to do more. I don't know when he's going to be doing more exactly because he's got a lot of stuff on his plate right now with some other books that are being worked on slowly over time. Um, but yeah, and then Skandar is coming to its has just come to its close. Um, I don't know exactly what's going to happen with Impossible Creatures and um, the Dragon Ship series because those two have only had uh, two books and one book respectively. So we're probably going to be waiting a while before we know exactly what's going to happen with those. Um, but yeah, and I don't know. So I think that there's a lot that they could. I don't know. I One thing that I do find interesting is that despite the fact that they're out of a lot of they're no longer able to use material. Lord of the Rings is still continuing. Um, all of the material that they are technically allowed to use has been used up because Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit that is all that they are technically allowed to use. They're not allowed to use the unfinished like Hobbit was allowed to use Unfinished Tales stuff, and I think Lord of the Rings might have been able to. I don't know for sure. Um, and then obviously, but their recent thing with what, so they did. They're releasing the Hunt for Gollum. I don't know when that's coming out, or if it's already out. But yeah, I know that's something that's supposed to be coming or is coming. I don't know for sure. And then Rings of Power. Like neither of those are really using any material properly. Like I think Hunt for Gollum might be using some stuff from Unfinished Tales. but Rings of Power isn't using anything from Silmarillion. It's not using anything from Unfinished Tales, and yet for some reason they're continuing to do it, and it's, I don't know. I'm worried for that it's going to ruin the rest of the series. However, the anime that they did, War of the Rohirrim, that was actually really good. And that does not actually use any material from any like, I think there's like a mention of some of the stuff that happens in War of the Rohirrim in Unfinished Tales, but that's it. There's not really much more than that. And it's such a good movie. So I would I would say I would recommend that. But like, it's interesting that they're not that like people aren't really going for other series. Like, we know that eventually we will be getting a Skandar series, because she's talked about it pretty extensively. And we're probably gonna get a new Aragon series eventually. And yeah, I don't think that we're going to see anything from Impossible Creatures for several years. I don't think we're going to see anything for whatchamadiddle, the Dragon Ship series for several years. There have been rumors that they're going to do stuff with Chronicles of Narnia, but I don't know what they're planning for that. That's just, it's such a weird situation with that.
Fair.
Like, there's some things that they're doing with that like have been rumored about that, and it just makes me kind of concerned that they're just doing it to make the money. They're not actually doing it because they love the story. So, I don't know. There's a lot with it, but I think it's also odd, I think is probably the best way to put it, that even though several books define generations, many of their books do not actually get movies, and yet there's also a lot of this idea that it has to have a movie in order for it to be good, or it has to have a movie so that people can so that people will actually watch it. Like, we recently read or not read, we watched Wheel of Time, and that is actually a really good series. I want to read the book now because of it. So yeah, so there's that. But like, the series that shall not be named had its movies, and that's part of the reason why it's considered like one of the bigger series. But a lot of these books really don't get that, and whether it be because the author doesn't want there to be a movie, or they don't want the movie to be to break the story, and so on and so forth. So I don't know. It's odd. I mean, I would also include some other books though in series that define generations, but they're for older audiences. Like, I would say frickin' whatchamadiddle, Hunger Games. I think that defines the older generation, like our generation, but the older side of it.
I would agree with that.
Like, even though I personally I couldn't care less for Hunger Games, I really can't.
Same.
But we for a lot of our peers, it has defined a lot of them, which is kind of worrying. It's such a violent series, and such a, I don't know. It worries me that is something that a lot of people like look at and they're like, yes, please, I want to do this. I want to, it's like, I don't know. It's worrying that is something that a lot of people look at and is like, yes, this is great. This is a fantastic series. Despite the fact that it's literally kids killing kids. That
Yeah,
feels,
it's terrible.
it really is. Like, we watched the movie, and it was so bizarre to me because the way that I found out about it was because of my youth group. And I was like, huh. And like, they wanted to read it, and I'm like, huh. I don't know how to feel about this. This feels weird. And then we watched the movie and we're like, what the fuck? Like, why? Why was this not only a youth group, but Christian people who claim to be Christians are like loving this series and reading this book in something that is supposed to, yeah, I just, it's
Yeah,
concerning.
I
It's really
I would
concerning.
agree.
And I don't know how to feel about it. I really don't. I know that some people really enjoy that series, but it's just, and it worries me, like I said, that it defined that it defines a generation, because it feels like these people who were defined by it are feeling like violence is the only option. Meanwhile, people like us who were defined by books like uh, Chronicles of Narnia and other books like it, where like you only use violence as a last resort. It's like, I don't know. A lot of these, like, yes, there are books that deal with violence and stuff like that, but a lot of them really feel like they are saying the whole only use violence as a last resort. Try to stand up for things. Um, try to stand to make sure that make a stand without hurting people as much as possible, and then when you have no choice but to, then stand strong, but try to avoid it as much as possible. I feel like that's more of the story that like, even though Percy Jackson does have a lot of combat in it, comparatively, that is a series about standing your ground, but not acting violently until it's your last resort.
Yeah,
Same thing goes for Chronicles of Narnia, and um, like, Aragon is a different story. It was made by a child. Um, so
yeah. Let's be very fair about that.
so I'm not gonna like put it to the same standards as like Percy Jackson, or as the series that should not be that will shall not be named should be held to, despite the fact that the author is a terrible human being. Um, so yeah, but even that, like, still, it didn't. It, they really didn't have that much violence in that until it was the last resort, and especially Skandar. He specifically did not want to fight for as long as he possibly could, and then when he found out that he really didn't have a choice, he he did fight. But even at that point, when he felt like there was no other choice, he still looked for a possible way to end the conflict without more bloodshed, and that is
And found it.
and fucking found it. It was incredible. And I think that that's a lesson that a lot of people need to learn, is that you don't need to be you don't need to fight you don't need to be violent in order to get to fix things. You
Yeah,
you can
I would
make a
agree with
stand
that.
you can make a stance without hurting people. So, yeah. Yeah. And yeah, so Skandar. I think Skandar wins the award for best series ever.
Yeah, definitely.
We've already
I
said
would
that.
say yes.
We've already said that. Um, but yeah, I think that it definitely will stand the test of time, and I hope that that is going to be a stance that people will strive to take because of the Skandar series, trying to find a way that can avoid conflict as much as possible, and even when there is, when you do have to have a you have to be violent, look for a way that you can still end the violence as peacefully as possible, and Yeah, and so
Yep.
I don't know. It's interest. It's yeah. That is an important lesson to learn from a lot of these books. And while some of them, for sure, are they do have that kind of idea. Um, I think it's interesting with Aragon actually, because it does, even though it does have a lot more of the series. I think it has more violence, and that's kind of telling with the fact that he was a child. He was a child as he was writing that series. But
True.
especially in Murtagh, he tried his hardest to find a way to get past a lot of stuff without actually being without actually fighting, which for for Murtagh specifically, like that's really telling because he was one of the most violent characters of the original series.
True.
And the fact that now after he's trying to be better, he does try his hardest not to be violent. And while he's still pretty violent comparatively, but it looks like he is on the route to be less and to find a peaceful way to handle things. So,
True.
yeah. Obviously, you haven't read the book yet, so that's about as much as I'm going to say about Murtagh. But, yeah.
Fair.
But, I don't know. And, so, I have another question, though, thinking about it. Do you think that manga have defined generations? Or do you think
Oh,
they...
definitely.
Like, I think One Piece, like, even though we don't know much about One Piece, I feel like that still has kind of ingrained itself in our minds. Same thing goes for Dragon Ball and stuff like that.
Dragon Ball, I would say Astro Boy defined a generation.
Yeah, it did. That absolutely did.
Um, Definitely Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, and all the others that have come up from it.
Yeah. Oh. I think... Personally, I would say My Hero Academia has the good opportunity to be one of those.
Yeah,
It's
I would
been
agree.
it's been one of those series, especially in the time that that it's been around. It's been one of those series that has been it's touched a lot of people. I hope that they'll take the right lessons from it and not be like looking at characters like Mineta, and being like, "Oh, we should be like Mineta." Please don't.
Yeah.
Please, for the love of God, don't be Mineta. Ay, ay, ay. But, yeah. And then, I don't know. There's other series as well. Let's see here. What other things? What's something that's been more recent that you would say could be a defined like I
I
would
would say Assassination Classroom.
well that's older. I'd say that's like it's not like One Piece older or
Okay, fair.
but it's older than My Hero for sure. So that was kind of in the My Hero generation, or before. That was the generation right before My Hero, I would say. So, I mean that's reasonable, and I think it's funny with this, especially with Assassination Classroom, because it's one of those series that you wouldn't think would be that important for what it, considering the fact that it's literally called Assassination Classroom. You'd think that that's not a good series to define a generation. It is. It really is one of those. It's fantastic. If you haven't read it yet or watched it, you absolutely should. Speaking of, that's getting a movie soon.
Oh, you told me that.
Yeah. So that's gonna be fun. It's basically just taking moments from the manga that never made it into the anime, but yeah. It's kind of like Horimiya Missing Pieces, if you know about that.
I
Um,
don't.
okay. Basically, they made a second season of Horimiya, and that told that it basically told that story. It told a few stories that were in the manga but didn't make it into the anime.
Gotcha.
So yeah, because I don't think they were aware if it was gonna. I don't think they thought that it was gonna get another season, so that's part of it. But yeah,
I see.
yeah. Um, I don't. A part of me wants to say like Promise Neverland or Doctor Stone. Um, but at the same
I
time,
would
though,
say The Promised Neverland for sure.
Doctor Stone, I feel is one of those series that will get more people into STEM, specifically the science side of
Yeah.
STEM.
Ooh,
Um,
ooh, Cells at Work.
that too, that's true. Honestly, there's a lot of series that could really help people to get more into things. Um, I especially say anime can really help people to get into anime and manga can really help people to get into um various different positions, I should say. Like if you watch Doctor Stone, you'll find something to love about science. It's a honestly, I would say that Doctor Stone should be taught. It should be something that is shown in classrooms, because or at least like specific parts of it. So like science classes and stuff like that. It should be taught. There are certain parts of it that they should absolutely show. Um, like obviously it would require a lot of editing because like certain parts of it are more important than others. Um, but because it's meant to be something that shows, um, yeah. But yeah, so there's that. Promise Neverland is such a great mystery series. Um, Spy Family, I think Spy Family is
Oh
yeah.
yeah, definitely.
There's very little comparing to very little that can be compared to Spy Family in terms of how good it is. Um, I think a sentence of a bookworm, freaking. I think Delicious in Dungeon is probably going to get a lot of people into cooking. Um, in the same way that Food Wars did back in the day. But I feel like when it comes to manga and anime, there's a lot more that is happening with those that can define like various different areas of a generation. While when it comes to books, it feels like they define an entire aspect of a generation. The like I don't know. I think it's like there are certain aspects of different books that have like you can kind of look at them and then you realize, oh, that's why this generation is that way.
Yes. TV
uh,
shows too.
TV shows too, yeah, that's accurate. But when it comes to like manga and anime, it's way more specified, I would say. Um, so like someone might have watched a lot of Food Wars, and then it's like, oh, that's why they're such a good chef because they fell in love with that show because of all the food, or they or same thing goes for Delicious in Dungeon. They literally made the recipes from that, or Drifting Dragons, same thing. There's way too many manga about making food. But yeah, so stuff like that. You can also I don't know. There's other things like that as well. It's hard to properly describe each of them. Um, but I don't feel like they like any one series like defines an entire generation unless it's like My Hero Academia or One Piece or Dragon Ball. Those define generations because they've been massive things. Basically the biggest of the shonen series, I would say. but that's about it comparatively. While a lot of the and Pokemon Pokemon defined a generation.
True.
I don't think it's going to define the next few generations, though. Just based on what's it's a very different animal than it used to be. I think that the games will continue to define generations, but when it comes to the anime specifically, I feel like that's going to be less defining in those terms. I don't know. Hard to say, but I think that's probably all I have to say about these things. Do you have anything else?
Nope.
All right. So let's go ahead and call it there for today's nerd chat. Next week is going to be very fun. Because we're going. That's actually going to be a live one. Because Minecraft is happening. So Minecraft Live is happening. So look forward to that. Oh boy. Are you ready for that?
Yes.
Oh, that's going to be a lot of fun to talk about. And also, there's a lot of things that are coming over the next few weeks. So expect us to be talking a lot more about, like, Pokemon and other video games. So, yeah. Anyways, guys, I've been Electro Ninja. He's been Jack. And we'll see you guys next week. But on.